Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Makpoor with you at BTV World. In today's show, we will be taking a look at the Prime Minister's visit to China. His official two-day visit to China has begun earlier today, and this is an important visit since this is the first time that the Prime Minister is visiting China after assuming office, and also he is one of the few dignitaries who are visiting China and are part of this bilateral engagement since the 20th meeting of the National Congress of the Communist Party of China. And we also know, in terms of course, whatever is going on both at home and at the economic front, this holds much more importance as well in terms of what it's going to mean for Pakistan. The Prime Minister is, of course, accompanied by various federal ministers. There is, of course, going to be a lot of discussion on CPEC, as has been said by the Prime Minister himself, that the main focus of this entire visit is going to be the revitalization of CPEC and its related projects, and, of course, increasing business-to-business engagements. He's going to be meeting his counterparts and, of course, the business community within China as well, and would seek to increase the bilateral business engagement between the two countries. We'll also be taking a look at exactly what sort of hope does Pakistan have in terms of its takeaways from this particular visit and the kind of impact it's going to have on CPEC in particular. We'll also be taking a look at understanding how exactly is going to be the scope expanded in terms of what the CPEC is going to mean, especially when we're ushering in the second phase of CPEC, and what's going to be then, of course, evolve into further development at the front in Pakistan and elsewhere in the region too. We'll also take a look at what this is going to mean for the economic situation in Pakistan. There is, of course, the stocks, which has risen by 44 points, which is, of course, just in hopes of good news coming in after this particular visit. But, of course, in the overall impact that this particular project will have on the economic situation, and then how exactly it's going to evolve in terms of the special economic zones, the labor force, of course, as part of Pakistan, especially with the focus on agricultural activities and output within the country, and how more engagements can be done on that front. And then obviously also using Pakistan as the manufacturing and supply chain base for other related projects in China as well. So these are going to be areas that we're going to focus on and try and understand what sort of hope there is from the business community in gaining from this particular visit, and how exactly will it shape the future dynamics. We'll also be taking a look at the political end of the situation and understanding, of course, the fact that when China has always stood by Pakistan, despite whatever is going on domestically or internationally, it will continue to do so in the current global crises that we keep on saying, which, of course, is impacting the entire nation and for which we require global action. However, there is, of course, a lot in terms of the international community that has been happening. So how exactly will that unfold, especially with regards to food security issues, the economic recession, the post-pandemic era, and, of course, conflicts that are around. So that is going to be the focus of our show today, and we're going to try and explore this particular visit and what it's going to mean for us. For this and more, as always, I've been joined in the studios by senior analyst Farooq Patafi and Raja Faisal. And we've also been joined online by Mr. Shakil Ahmed Rami, who's a political economist and also the visiting research fellow at Hebei University, China. And we've also been joined by Dr. Hassan Daud, former project director at CPEC and also KP Board of Investment. Thank you very much for joining us and being a part of the debate, gentlemen. Let me start with you, Mr. Shakil. Considering what is happening in terms of course, the kind of economic situation that Pakistan is dealing with, and also on the political front, we've been seeing a lot of instability since the start of this year, and of course that has had its own impact on the economic situation of the country as well. This particular visit is, of course, of utmost importance. One, of course, because of the fact that we share such historic brotherly ties with China, and so such visits are in any way important to us at any time. But considering the kind of situation that Pakistan is experiencing and the world is going through at the moment, how do you think that this particular visit is going to play out in terms of the economic situation of Pakistan, with special reference to CPEC?
To Patafi during the day, so we were discussing about the potential and opportunities. I think if we talk about the opportunities, we will have more opportunities. Like as has been discussed, Pakistan will be signing new MOUs in the field of technology, green growth. But for me, the most important MOU would be Global Development Initiative, because Global Development Initiative is a very comprehensive program which being adopted as a sustainable development goals like program by China, because it has many pillars which are directly contributing towards the sustainable development goals. And Pakistan would be first country to sign the MOU with China on the Global Development Initiative, It is important because in the context of the climate change is the one of the key area of the GDI, and we can attract cooperation from China through that MOU. One thing, and second area. So there is another area of work under the Global Development Initiative is the development financing. That is also important for us because we are facing the challenges of this shortage of money, and we are facing the challenges of short of investment. So we can also attract funding from there. This is a new area. From the older areas, we can talk about the agriculture. Definitely, China is willing to cooperate with Pakistan in the agriculture sector. They have shown the intent to establish different research institutions. They are working together to enhance the productivity of crops by the provision of higher quality seeds and other inputs. China has also invested in the machinery sector. But important point is, are we ready to take the required step to benefit from these opportunities? If we look at the China, they are willing, they are more than willing, and they are offering us opportunities. But it's up to us how we can utilize and how we can benefit from those opportunities. That is the fundamental question. Because required speed, which China wanted to implement the second phase of CPEC, we are not working with that speed. Look at at this point of time, we are still, after 8 or 9 years, we are still struggling to find the special economic zones. This is a pity because we adopt second phase as the industrialization and agriculture cooperation phase. And the fundamental thing which was required to give the impetus to the industrialization process or bring the investment in Pakistan in the form of industry or other areas, we are unable to establish that. Still, we are listening from the
Right, of course, and that is important in terms of what we need to do and to ensure, of course, that this actually is something that is deliverable and
slogans
that
and to the
Pakistan benefits
talks.
from. Yes. Shakil
Still,
let me
we are
come back to
listening
you, and let
to
me
the
just go to Dr. Hassan as well, and we'll talk about this more because, of course, it's an important aspect of how exactly Pakistan will be able to proceed. And of course, the CPEC project is of utmost importance to us. But of course, Dr. Hassan, when we take a look at the kind of situation that has existed in the past as well, and then moving forward, the kind of issues that there have been with the CPEC project, unfortunately, is not something that we'd like to see in the future as well. How will this particular visit, and of course, the Prime Minister's focus on a revitalization of CPEC project and also an expansion of its scope can benefit Pakistan, and what exactly do you think that will entail, especially when we talk about the special economic zones and increased business-to-business engagement?
Thank you, Sana, and thank you to all my friends who are online and also there at the studio. You know, the world is going through important transformational time. You know, the Ukraine-Russian conflict, the climate change, the COVID-19, all this are putting stress on regional integration and development that is shaping up, and also the way that U.S. China relationship and the brewing tension. Perhaps this is a very important visit in several contexts. And to begin with, on the political front, it's important because it is happening just after the Congress important 20th Congress meeting, where the new cabinet has been announced, and President Xi is looking at another term and looking at development initiatives, where actually he wants to bring China as at the forefront of the global development initiative, as Shakil just highlighted, and also in terms of other initiatives, including the BRI and the security initiative that is being spoken about. I was just in China, and I was called by Peking University and just to discuss the Global Development Initiative. And during my visit, and this was a longish 1.5 month visit, and during that, a lot of discussion was happening how Pakistan would play its role, because we are, in terms of CPEC, you know, the main players, and also how we have demonstrated in terms of our manifestation of China-Pakistan economic corridor, starting from energy to infrastructure to optical fiber to Gawada development. And you know, even there, when we were talking about, clearly stated that 2023 would be an important year for CPEC, because Gwadar Airport would come up, and you know, 4,000 acre land, and its development and incremental development, how East Bay Expressway is now shaping Gwadar and the free trade zone. So I think on the political front, because it is the second visit of any head of state. It's just the Vietnamese Communist Party leader has visited President Xi after the Congress meeting, and also our Prime Minister would be second. So it's important. Secondly, this is happening on the invitation of Premier Li Keqiang. And when Chinese invite any guest, and that's part of their tradition, they always offer something. And perhaps this time we are better prepared in terms of discussion that would happen, and also in terms of sectors that we have identified, starting from agriculture into industrial cooperation. And don't forget that Prime Minister would also be hosting an investment conference in Beijing, and also there many investors would come. I know that there have been challenges in terms of investment. There have been challenges in CPEC, but I think slow and steadily we have made huge progress. And today, when I look back, I was associated with CPEC since 2013. When I look back and the targets that those were given, I think we are about 2 to 3 years behind, but we can always cover up those 2-3 years. I would just
Dr.
like
Saab, since you were talking about SEZs, and it seems that this time the second phase of CPEC is primarily going to be export oriented. I understand how much value we attach with the special economic zones. I recently visited Gawada and the Gawada free zone that you were mentioning. I haven't seen much progress. Why would that be? Why is it that our business community has not set up their businesses there?
Okay, let me first talk about Rashakai, because I'm associated with Rashakai. So let me give you a case with Rashakai, and then I'll go to Gawada.
Absolutely.
So for Rashakai, I think overall we need to understand that this over development of special economic zones with another country had its own novelty in it. So since it had initially in 2016, when the first MOU was signed, thereafter we went through a longish learning curve. That in terms of our understanding what sort of industry we want. Secondly, our history of special economic zone, industrial zone, export processing zone have not been very good, because we weren't able to provide them utilities. Our overall regulations were not well crafted. So when CPEC came and we looked at those 9 special economic zone, we and the Chinese actually decided that they would be priority SEZs, and then this would have its own ink spot development. So Rashakai, Dhabeji, Faisalabad were identified as the start point, and then from there the incremental development would take shape. So for Rashakai, I think for us it was quite interesting, because we had to sign concessional agreement, development agreement with Chinese CRBC, and this was happening for the first time. So there were few challenges for both sides to understand, both in terms of work and also in terms of culture. Now going to Gawada, Gawada, the reason for me, one reason only, and that is electricity. Unless you provide them electricity and water, this challenge would remain. But now the good news is that recently the government has signed an MOU with the Iranian Energy Department, and perhaps early next year, we're going to have the 100 megawatt exclusively for Gawada. Till date, we've only been getting close to 10 megawatt for Gawada, and the remaining would be sprinkled around the entire Lasbela district. So just imagine how would you develop with 10 megawatts. So now I think with electricity coming, with 1.2 and 5 MGD water, million gallons per day water desalination plant coming, I think next year is important. Yeah.
Very true. Shakeel Saab, I would like to come towards you. Obviously, when we talk about this visit, of course, one of the aspect which is very important is that the current government wants to attract the labor intensive industry from China to come to Pakistan and invest in Pakistan. Of course, it would be an ample opportunity for Pakistan to have an industry in Pakistan that can create jobs and opportunities for youth of Pakistan. So would you please highlight this, that in this phase, obviously, what kind of industries we would be seeing thriving in the context of special economic zones, sir?
And by the way, Shakil Saab, why is it that we haven't been able to showcase all the opportunities that might be there?
Thank you both of you, Patafi and Raja Saab. I think the point is the opportunities are there. I always maintain there are a lot of opportunities. We can even think about there are more than beyond our imagination. The opportunities are there. The problem is we don't want to learn, and we don't want to act according to the need of the time. Hassan Saab I think pertinently he explained the situation, the process, how they are coming along. But the fundamental thing is we are not deputing the people to the CPEC who understand the economic dynamics or who understand the you can say the institutional context of the both two countries. We are just trying to deputing the people who have this understanding, and we want them to make a difference. That will not be possible. One thing and second thing, if we want to bring those industry, we need skilled people, skilled youth. So what is the status of skill development in Pakistan? Either we will be able to provide those skilled labor to these industries about which we are dreaming. No, we will not. We did not do anything for the last 8 years. I was just looking at the statistics of the government. So more than 50% institutions belong to the private sector, which are involved in the skill development. And they are quite expensive, the poor people cannot go there. So one thing and second thing, the China have given us the more than 1 billion US dollar for the social development, and from that 500 or 6 million, 100 million was for the skill development. What we did with that money during the last 4 or 5 years, we're just still planning. We're doing the work, we're doing the policy, we're doing this, and then we are expecting these institutions, these opportunities will be beneficial for Pakistan. So I just can say, so what we are trying to do right now is we're just trying to run the CPEC with the slogans and with the sweet talks, and just trying to talk most of the time. China is our brother, China is our friend, higher than the mountain, deeper than the sea. These are I think the regional, real things we are looking at, that when we look at the people who are dealing with the CPEC.
Absolutely, Shakil Saab, I understand where you're coming from, and of course the substance needs to be there as well. But of course, historically speaking, the friendship has also evidently proven itself on various occasions, and so perhaps it's more than just words. But there is of course a lot at home that we're accountable for and responsible for in terms of what we need to achieve, and especially with regards to such an important project, CPEC. Farooq, considering this particular visit, first of all, what will be the biggest takeaways? Of course, there are the MOUs or the agreements planned in terms of the kind of cooperation there is, but what will be a success for Pakistan? And then secondly, also shed some light on what Shakil Saab was saying in terms of what needs to be done at home in the aftermath of such visits, or actually getting together whatever work needs to be done to actually then have that result in tangible results and then tangible change, and people can actually see the benefit of CPEC trickling in.
Right, Sana, and that is a very good question. Regarding Shakil, let me be very frank. I think we shouldn't be judging him too harshly. He is one of the best well-wishers of the projects of CPEC. I think if he actually criticizes something, that is because of his frustration, because he wants to see, all these things actually taking place on China's speed or Shehbaz speed. I hope that this time both actually merge and they can really bring about the kind of result that we need. Before leaving Pakistan, the Prime Minister actually contributed, Sana, an op-ed to Global Times. If you read that, you'll know that the priorities of the two countries have improved. And it is not merely about exports, it is also about agriculture, it is about capacity building, and also Pakistan's ability to improve its exports to China. Remember, we keep on talking about FTAs, and we keep on talking about how FTAs usually ends up being Pakistan importing stuff from other countries rather than exporting. So this time there's going to be focus on export of or transfer of technology as well, so that we can also become a part of Chinese value chain, that is very important to remember. But let me also, since you talked about the biggest takeaway, I think the biggest takeaway again was visible before the Prime Minister left Pakistan, and that was ACNIC's approval of two key projects. One, ML1, Main Line 1, that is a train, railway project that is very important because our railway infrastructure seems to be falling apart. So it is going to be a humongous improvement on the infrastructure. The second one that was approved by ECNEC was Karachi Circular Railway. And the total cost of these two projects is somewhere around $11 billion. So it is, if we can actually move the needle on these two projects, it is going to be very important and really, really useful. When it comes to the question you asked regarding, Shakil Rahmi's concerns, let me also say that our country has inherited a bureaucratic system that is very close to colonial one, right? We are a post-colonial country. So we have, in a way, inherited more or less all the dysfunctions that are characteristic. But another country also actually did that. It inherited our twin, that is India. And India has, since Manmohan Singh's time, has actually improved upon how, investment takes place. For one, instead of 22 or 23 windows to go to seek approval to business, one window operation was started, and that has been very useful. We'll have to actually follow up on these as well. But then there's a political question. Why is it that no JCC took place during Imran Khan Saab's time? We keep on hearing that there was no slowdown of CPEC, but why is it that we haven't seen that much progress during Imran Khan Saab's time? So that is a big concern. It was quite visible in frustration in Gawadar as well. I'm sure that is the case with Tashakai too. In coming days, let us hope that we learn from these examples and improve upon what we have.
Absolutely, and it's important that you mentioned that, because considering what is going on domestically, there is of course the kind of concern that we already have in terms of the political instability, its impact on the economic situation, and then of course on projects such as the CPEC. Dr. Hassan, considering what is going on at the moment on the political front, whatever has impacted CPEC before and whatever can possibly impact CPEC in the future, this of course is an important question for us, because this project is so dear and so important to the country. There is of course the issue of the terrorist spikes as well. That was of course a matter of concern for the Chinese citizens in the past as well, and we have of course given them assurances regarding their security. But in terms of the kind of hindrances and factors that exist that could potentially harm the CPEC project, of course the political instability and the terrorism issue is of course are a few big ones. Considering these and others that can possibly also exist, how can Pakistan ensure that moving forward such projects don't get disrupted? Because at the end of the day, when we talk about investment, we need to provide a ground for investors to come in as well, for them to actually see the utility in coming to Pakistan.
The answer to your question is very simple, and I'm a projects management specialist, so I'll answer you with that lens. Continuity of policy, and we can learn from our competitors, and also learn from China. As a matter of fact, what they did, if you just follow their growth pattern, what they've done is that continuity policy, giving incentives, those were comparative, and this has been done by Bangladesh and also India. Although our incentives are not bad, and they're quite flexible and favorable, but when we have to create that pull factor for investors to come in, and for that pull factor we have to create that enabling environment. I understand that ease of doing business and one window have been slogans of recently, and World Bank has also projected that. But just imagine China in early 80s and then perhaps moving on till 90s. I mean, if ease of doing business was one factor, then no foreign investor would have flown to China. The reason was that the continuity of policy, and that policies would have a top-down impact and commitment. When you have a top-down commitment, then of course the investors feel confidence, because and also, for Pakistanis, we must remember that our religion also tells us that whatever you promise in terms of incentives, you must abide to that. And therefore, whatever we offer in SEZs, through SEZ Act, various other policies, we must make sure that when an investor come, and remember, few of those investors do not understand our English, do not understand our culture, do not understand even Urdu. So for them, it's an additional challenge, and when they do not find joint venture partners here, then they get concerned. But just a few corrections, sir. One is that 10th JCC happened during previous government time, and but the flow of activity has to have this continuity of policy. I think for me as project manager and as someone who's worked in CPEC, I would not rather look at who's in the government, but also the commitment has to come from all stakeholders. It is a national project. It must have across the board commitment from all stakeholders.
Right, Dr. Saab, I was actually paraphrasing the information minister who spoke today, and she claimed actually that there wasn't any JCC. But regardless of that, let me ask you, because you have worked so closely with CPEC, do you think that having a CPEC authority actually made any difference, or this current model is okay?
I think for me, I've always been a proponent of working with bureaucracy. I think I would like to strengthen my ministries more rather than setting up new authorities. This is my one-liner to you. When you set up authorities, then perhaps few people get benefit, but the entire ministry, which was doing wonderfully well, their capacity to do work, the engagement with foreigners, and the confidence that they come across by traveling to China and learning about investment. Because remember, for bureaucrats and for people working in public sector, working on investment is not an easy work. They have these notions around NAB and all other fearful factors. But when it comes to investment, it needs proper crafting of human resource, as Shakil Bhai mentioned. So I think we were not, when you improve your ministries and give them the chance to build their capacity, I think that's the way forward for me.
Exactly. Ramesh Saab, I'll come towards you. We know that, of course, government is trying to create a win-win situation, obviously, as they are claiming that they will be creating a win-win situation for the investors to invest in Pakistan. Obviously, I know that you have been hawking upon CPEC and related, projects. I just wanted to know, as you have been, looking deep into all of these projects since a long time, to you, what are the hindrances and how they can be overcome?
And by the way, I know that you are going to also respond to this CPEC authority question. I understand that strengthening a government or ministry is important, but our problem is also very checkered. It is not silos, horizontal silos. It is also vertical tiers of governance, because there is a provincial government, then there is supposed to be a local government. So how do you actually correct that, driving all this from center while ensuring that other levels don't become a problem?
And if you can shed some light on one window operations as well, please.
Yeah, more or less the same thing. Yeah, we have a one window operation.
I think you put all the important questions, and the right person would be Hassan Daud, who is sitting there on the CPEC for a long time, and he observed the situation, what is going on, and we learn from him. The point is, what is the biggest hindrance? The biggest hindrance is our thinking process. We are unable to comprehend of such a big level of project how to implement it. We're just trying to compare oranges with apples. We don't understand what is this CPEC. This is fundamental thing which you need to understand. That's why I always say, look at this point of the time. Ministry, as I said during the day, where Patafia didn't want to repeat that, but I have to.
No, I don't recall. I don't have any problem. Please repeat whatever you want to.
The problem is all the ministries,
all the ministries,
they are involved in a tug of war.
It's a bad thing.
It's a bad thing.
Yes, carry on.
It's a tug
Carry on.
of war. So one thing and second thing. Do you tell me now the focal ministry for this CPEC is the Planning Commission? Does Planning Commission have any authority to give an order to Board of Investment to do certain things? Does Planning Commission has authority to tell the Federal Minister of Energy what to do? Or does the CPEC authority, Planning Commission has authority to tell the Ministry of Commerce do on the trade enhancement? No, they don't. They are all equal. So you need a system, and then in this system, one thing, when you commit on the GCC, they are the representative, everybody co-chaired by the Federal Minister of Planning, they commit something, then the process starts of the bureaucracy, because their work is so much spread. You can't find out the one window. You are talking about the one window, I cannot find out the one room, because they are, everybody have their own room and their own windows and their own things. They want to show them they are the best at doing the solve, and this mentality and the thinking process has made the progress of our CPEC. Second phase, which the planning Minister of Planning, he is always claiming we implemented. First phase was entirely different from the second phase, because first phase was led by G2G, and there was less problems, because there are major programs led by G2G, and somehow there was involvement from Chinese side on the private sector, which was dealing with the Pakistani government. So they did not have to face the problems. But second phase is led by private sector. And the private sector, it is not about the ease of doing business, which I was talking about, we improve the ranking. The real thing is how you implement. I always give the example of the comparison of India and China. India started the SOC's establishment before the China. China, they have the continuity of the policy, but fundamental thing which we don't discuss here. After every 10 years, they refine their policy according to their new development status. What we do, we just want to stick one thing, oh, it will work. No, according to your development status, you need to revise your policies. Look at why after 10 years, why their National Congress is so much important. Because they look and they see where we are, what type of the policy measures we need, and what type of engagements we need. In the first 10 years, from 1978 to 2090, what they adopted? They adopted this village enterprises, agriculture dual pricing system, and these fundamental things. And the next, what they did, they want to consolidate those enterprises into the economy of scales. They introduced those laws. And the third, when they started the 2000th century and this 21st century, they went for the privatization to limited scale, because they have to go to the WTO and they have to integrate in the global system. Do we have this thinking process here? We are
right, Shakil, by the way, we all agree about one thing, and that is that there should be continuity of policies. And everyone agrees that there should be less of problems. But the problem right now is that we can talk about how things should be, but they are not. And how to improve upon that is the question. Otherwise, of course, we can all agree here that the world poverty should end tomorrow. But will it?
And also, Shakil Sahab, of course, the kind of changes that you're talking about are quite fundamental and long-term and require a lot of effort in terms of what needs to happen. But if we're looking for the first step forward or to actually improve upon what the situation is right now, what do you think will be the immediate steps that need to be taken, especially in the aftermath of this visit, because we're trying to gain something here?
Fundamental step would be create a central body with the power of decision making and implementation, and the investor who is coming to Pakistan, he only have to deal with that authority or that body. Either if you don't like the name of CPEC authority, you can say it's a planning commission. They don't have any other thing to do. They have to do with what they do with the CPEC. Create one body, strong body, with decision making and implementation power, not the coordination. Because when you put the word of coordination, they have to deal with the business. Look at the business structure of Pakistan. Federal Board of Investment, then you will go for the Provincial Board of Investment or some other parties like that. Then you go for the district level, local government. It's a different institution for the tax system, for the permits, for the electricity connection, for water connection. So you will not end anywhere if you are not changing the fundamental structure. You need a central body, which is being looked after by the Prime Minister office, not by any other ministry. One thing, and second thing, which is immediately required at this point of the time, that is the security. We need to refine and redefine the security apparatus for the CPEC. And we need to read what is the new security definition of China. we are still stuck in the definition of 1980.
We have to adapt.
And they have
Faisal, if you
definition
are
of-
not going to ask a question, I've been waiting that you are going to ask a question.
Yeah.
If you are not, I'm going to start.
Yeah, I will.
I'll
Please,
actually go-
please,
I'm
Dr.
going to
Dr. Hassan,
go
Dr.
to
Hassan.
No, no,
and
no,
then
no.
we'll come back
And
to
Dr. Hassan,
Faisal
very important
because
question.
The force
Yeah.
taking us. No, but I have a follow-up to Ramesh Saab's
She's the leader.
question and answer with regards to what is happening, of course, in terms of the kind of changes. Again, Farooq, when we look at all of this, this is something that is still fundamental. If we're talking about security concerns or security conditions or understanding terrorism and getting this dynamic together, that's of course an issue. And then perhaps creating an authority might be an easier step, but then creating an authority with decision-making and implementation power, that's another aspect that's been added by Ramesh Saab, which of course again is very fundamental and quite difficult. And at the end of the day, whenever we talk about problems, we talk about dialogue, consensus, and what is needed. And like you said, there are so many shoulds, but at the end of the day, that's not happening. So I don't see these as quick fixes anyway at the moment. And how exactly do you think we'll be able to even translate the kind of power that is required? Because of course the position can be there, but without power there's not much that you can do, as we've recently learned also.
Right, Sana, one question. Okay, right. We are going to come back to you, Shakil, but was it directed
Yes,
at me?
yes, Farooq, go ahead.
Right. Regarding various aspects which are very important, one of the questions that we are actually looking at this moment during the visit is whether there will be any rescheduling of the loans that are non-Paris club loans, right? Essentially, most of them coming from China. So remember one thing, our Chinese friends, our investors have been very kind. I've seen them in Gawada, how patient they are for 6 years. Many of them have not left the vicinity of the port itself, right? They haven't seen the city, but they have been waiting. If you want to know how patient and how kind they are towards us, compare their business activities in Africa, elsewhere. They have been very aggressive, right? And they have been pushing forward. So remember, when you have actually made commitments, and Hassan Saab was essentially talking about commitments that even religion says that when you have made commitments, you should fulfill them. Remember, if we are not going to do it, if we are going to slack, it will create a humongous diplomatic problem as well. So it is very important for us to start delivering on these issues. The unfortunate part is that when it comes to our politics, I told you earlier as well, in Gawada I met everybody, from security to foreigners to bureaucracy of all shades and kinds, right? The only component that I could not meet, and all of them were here, the politicians who were actually delivering long lectures on Gawada. I went with the commoners, I asked them, where are your representatives? They say they don't come here for years. And if that is the state of affairs, you'll have to fix it. Otherwise, it will become a humongous problem for us.
Absolutely.
Dr.
And Hassan
Hassan.
Saab wanted to add something first, Faisal, and you can pose a question later. Hold your horses.
I
Yes,
have been
yes,
holding
Hassan Saab.
horses since a long time.
It's all right.
Yeah,
They're
Hassan.
not running away anyway.
Dr. Saab, please go ahead.
I just want to say a few things, and I, my PhD and dissertation has been on Chinese development model. You cannot just develop overnight. There is a process to that, and you have to follow that process. And as Deng Xiaoping, the great Deng Xiaoping clearly said, you will cross the river by touching each pebble. Sometimes being impatient also impacts the speed of delivery. There's a natural flow of management that you have to go through. And having said that, the aspect, sometimes we get into debates which I believe, because I've been working on the field, and when you are in field, you do not care whether the decision is flowing from the authority or the ministry or the prime minister office. It has to flow, and the speed of decision making has to be important. If it flows from any right, left, center, east, west, north, south, it does not matter to me, because there are certain situations where you need immediate. Also, please remember, and I agree to Ramesh Saab to an extent, but I'll pose my reply to the argument also. The investment of around 28 billion US dollars came in 3 years, because from 2013 till 15, we were just understanding China's policy. They were understanding as there were several MOUs signed, and most of them were based on policy articulation, and also framing the way forward. But then post 2015 and 2016, when industrial cooperation happened, and we've been able to get energy projects, we've been able to get infrastructure. I know our Rame and some of our colleagues say that these were in government to government mode and G2G mode, and now B2B would flow. But I think even in B2B case, there would be certain backing from both of our governments, unless both the governments, encourage our investors. Because, these business councils, these business forums are extremely important. And I was speaking to FPCCI today early in the morning. I said, while you complain and you talk about government's role, there is a role to be played by these business bodies also. They have to encourage and find out where the natural endowment lies, where there are low-hanging fruit in terms of investment. Like in KP, we have this huge mineral and resources. So, but you just can't give away raw minerals to any investor. You have to add value. So first of all, and also before the visit of the Prime Minister, we had this discussion in BOI, and first of all, and I would say this, making a roadmap for you, is that first of all we need to identify the low-hanging fruit. What are the sectors in which we do not need so much of technology upgradation, and we just, like we say, labor-intensive industry. And I've been hearing this labor-intensive industry from the days when I was in colleges. Now we need three things. We need technology from China. We need money flow from China in terms of investment, as you can call it, or any other support, whether you're talking about extension of loans or whether you're talking about business community coming in with their, because they work with the rest of the world. We have these challenges of working. So now, A would be technology, B would be money, and third would be, if I would say, the sector that really demands, hands down approach would be agriculture sector. We've just
absolutely, Dr. Saab. Sana, Madam Speaker, with your permission, let me ask Faisal to unleash his horses.
Right.
And let us see if he can. Let us hope that now he can actually convert his question into a comment.
Yes.
Not a comment, it's just a question I wanted to ask Dr. Hassan. Dr. Hassan, when we talk about the expansion of CPEC, obviously eyeing upon Central Asian Republic, with the better connectivity we can have with the Central Asian Republics, don't we think that it will provide us with more opportunities, number one, and number two, of course it would have Afghanistan in between as well, and it can create opportunities for Afghanistan as well. And when we talk about security concerns of both China and Pakistan, they can be taken care of with this kind of initiative. And if so, will this be part of this trip, sir?
Yeah, first of all, again, when I would talk of regional integration, and also globalization and benefiting from, I would just do my SWOT analysis. What are my strengths, weaknesses, and the opportunities and threats? This region, despite the natural endowment, despite our connectivity, Tajikistan is just about 18 hours drive if you have a smooth, seamless drive. Also, please remember, again, in terms of supply chain, the smallest of bottleneck is the biggest of problem. So you just can't have a border crossing where, you will complain that our internet flow is not good and our VBOC is not working. This would not, this is not a sensible answer to give to any traders who has a timeline to meet. So bitter politics, poor infrastructure has been impacting, and despite this huge endowment that we have not been able to actually benefit from and leverage our regional connectivity. So I think, and I was in China recently, and as I said earlier, there was a huge discussion around SEO. I think Pakistan is a key player in SEO, and we keep forgetting, and we keep talking about BRI, which is, yes, huge potential and huge opportunity, but also SEO is another opportunity in terms of regional and the northward regional integration that you were just speaking about. Because, the Central Asian countries have a major role in SEO, And therefore, if you follow President Xi Jinping's movement outside, just after COVID, he just went straight to Central Asian country and attended the SCO conference. Therefore, for us, we are part of all these regional bodies. We can benefit, and also, but our preparation, our level of preparedness, and when I say we keep complaining productivity of our labor force, but productivity across the board. Now I represent academia, I work with the business community. I think the productivity level across, even in bureaucracy and perhaps in politics, as you were referring to, our productivity has to improve. And I think this, lastly, sir, in a larger framework, I think this has to be part of our curriculum, especially in higher education.
I know that you want to either conclude or go to Shakil Sami. I very quickly want to add, because I also interviewed recently the Secretary General of SCO. I totally agree with the grand vision that it should come together and work and start delivering. But here's the problem. Before expanding the canvas, first of all, actually fulfill that you can the commitments that you have made, and optimize all the potential that is there within your realm. Then you can go elsewhere, right? My biggest problem is start now, start here, and then go anywhere.
Absolutely, and you've always talked about that and talked about how it should benefit our home first, and of course that's a priority for us. But Shakil Saab, very quickly, since we're short on time, considering what is of course going to happen in terms of this particular project and how we're going to see it evolve, we have our political and economic concerns, but there's also the international concerns, and I'll circle back to what you started off with, the Global Development Initiative, and of course the kind of global action and response that we require in terms of the way that things are changing, especially how economically devastating the floods have also been in Pakistan. How will our partnership with China, especially in the CPEC, translate into this larger regional connectivity or larger canvas in which we can actually play around with, just on the fact that this is going to be something that is, of course, impacting Pakistan?